some lighter note. As a lawyer, I usually deal with transactions, and sometimes they take quite a long time and they move very slowly, honestly. And it's refreshing to moderate finally something which moves faster and more efficient. And speaking of movement, I cannot start without saying or without mentioning about the good performance of Uzbekistan's national football team, and I believe many of you either watched it today in the morning or were monitoring what is going on. But nevertheless, the game was perfect. I would say first time for Uzbekistan on a World Cup, and this also indicates the level of interaction between the Central Asia countries, because I assume it's not only Uzbekistan but the whole Central Asia was supporting the team, and this is about not about economic ties, but also about some cultural or emotional ties as well. Today we're gonna speak about transformation of rail sector and development of new transport corridors in the Central Asia region. And we need to say that railways is no longer just a railway infrastructure. It's becoming a strategic asset, and that asset is critical for trade, for resilience, for regional competitiveness of the countries. And in this session we will explore how modernizing the railway sector, scaling international corridors, and mobilizing private investments in the sector can position the Central Asia as a more efficient, investable, and globally relevant logistics platform. So in the context of today's panel discussion, let me briefly tell a couple of words about the ongoing transformation of the railway sector, and I believe our panel speakers will provide additional input on that. So if we talk about transformation of Uzbekistan railways, it started in October 2023 by adopting the presidential resolution PP 329, and it was used as a ground for the unbundling and transformation of the Uzbekistan Railways Company. And key objectives of that transformation were creating a competitive railway service market, attracting private investments into the sector, and particularly in freight services, improving financial sustainability and operational efficiency, introducing modern corporate governance principles, accelerating digital transformation, and maximizing Uzbekistan's transit potential between Asia and Europe. And as a logical step, the new law on railway transport was passed in a year after that. So currently we have good legal basis for the transformation, for the market liberalization of railway sector in the country. And if we talk about the transformation itself, so it basically includes two major steps. It's unbundling and transformation. And unbundling also means the liberalization of the market. So historically, Uzbekistan railways used to be a vertical integrated monopoly. So transformation and unbundling provided that this monopoly, which was responsible for infrastructure, freight operations, passenger services, rolling stock maintenance, etc. So everything integrated in one company. Now it's unbundled functionally. So we have like six specialized companies as of now. So it's Demiryol Infratuzilma, which is responsible for infrastructure and maintenance, Demiryol Cargo, freight operations, Demiryol Express, high-speed passenger services, Temiryol vokzalları, railway stations, and Temiryol İçtimai Hizmetler, which is responsible for social and auxiliary services. So that unbundling provided some sort of liberalization for the market. Now these measures provide private operators to participate in the sector and provide services to the clients, to the customers. It also introduces some competition between the state-owned companies and private companies and among the private companies, and allow customers to freely choose service providers. So, and also as a necessary step of that unbundling is privatization of non-core assets of Uzbekistan Railways. So it will allow the company to focus on its core business services like freight operations and passenger services. The second step is transformation, which includes corporate transformation, operational transformation, and digital transformation. So if we are talking about corporate transformation, that includes it was in the beginning the Uzbekistan Railways invited international advisors for that process, and they have been advising and assisting the company going through the corporate transformation that entailed to modern governance standards, introducing independent directors in the supervisory boards of the companies. Also, it's been transitioning to IFRS, international standards, introducing some sort of high performance-based management and transparency and risk control systems. And as a result, last year it was reported that the company transitioned from the years of financial insufficiency to profitability. So it was a good and bold move towards profitability of Uzbekistan Railways. Operation transformation provided reduced freight transportation times, and it's reported that the transit time reduced up to 50%, improved wagon utilization, and increased capacity, and particularly around Tashkent city. And digital transformation assumes implementation of digital systems. So, for example, a mere example that you can buy tickets like online with using your mobile phone, etc. So the process of digital transformation is going well, and we hope it will continue. And as far as I know, there are some plans to introduce an AI-driven optimization tools, and also the transformation itself leads to a basic target of the railway sector, which is becoming the regional and regional transit hub, because the Central Asia is the center of Eurasia, and Uzbekistan right in the middle of this Central Asia, and it's obvious that we should use that opportunity to become the regional transit hub. So we have this middle corridor initiatives, and Mr. Choriev will be speaking about Traseka initiatives, so and Traseka plans. So it's also within the strategy of developing the railway sector, and also all these efforts are supported by international financial organizations like World Bank, EBRD, ADB, and hopefully Eurasian Development Bank will also provide its input in these initiatives. Nevertheless, we still have some challenges ahead, and I know that there are some issues with aging rolling stock. There might be some service quality concerns, especially from international companies. I know that there are some issues related to capacity bottleneck, especially on the route from Tashkent to Samarkand, and the need to attract more private investments in the sector. So moving forward, I would like to introduce today's panel. My name is Dilshad Habibulayev. I'm a partner at Kinstellar. My primary focus is on infrastructure and projects, and basically on transport sector. I was involved in unbundling of civil aviation sector, so we closely work with Mansour Bustani from the World Bank on that. And also I advised sponsors on airport PPP projects, as well on toll roads projects, etc. And I wouldn't say that I'm a big expert in railways. However, I had some chance and opportunities to work on railways as well. So next to me I have Jasurbek Churiyev, Deputy Minister of Transport and Secretary General of Traseka. Also we have Alexei Skatin, the Chief Executive Director of Eurasian Development Bank. Next is Mansour Bustani, Senior Transport Specialist of the World Bank. Next one is Mr. Innokenty Ivanov, a partner from Freshfields and a good friend of mine. And finally we have, last but not least, Mr. Roman Sorokin, the Vice President for Sales of Central Asia and Caucasus of Skoda Group. So let me start with you, Ms. Jasurbek. And I think you will be speaking about the Traseka and the digitalization, but as far as I know, you have quite an experience in aviation. And as an expert of aviation, could you please provide your insights of how railways similar to aviation, and how development of middle corridor or other transport corridors are within the government's objectives? And as a Secretary General, could you please provide also further inputs on further developments? Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming for this session. I think we had a very entertaining night yesterday. Whoever was on some of the receptions, I think there were 3 different receptions. And fortunately, I was at the Yandex, where Lara Fabian, his son, had beautiful songs. She really was amazing. And what I wanted to say, it never rains in June, especially in the middle of the June. So when I put my alarm clock at 7 a.m., so I barely woke up. When I woke up, it was raining. So I thought, okay, there must be a reason for this rain, because our national team, football, started playing at World Cup for the first time in the history. So when it rains, we say, okay, this is for the blessing. And when I put the TV on, it was already score 1-0 against Uzbekistan. So moments after, our team scored back. It was even, so the tears of happiness came, honestly. But the tears of happiness didn't last long. So it became sadness. However, I think it was an amazing game, and I think we still have the option and opportunity to show our best in the World Cup. Yesterday I spoke about Traseka initiatives already, and I wanted to stop a little bit on the achievements on the railway sector for Uzbekistan, if you allow me. But briefly on aviation, I think today Uzbekistan is a showcase for remarkable growth rate on aviation in terms of traffic, in terms of PPP initiatives, in terms of digitalization, and most amazingly, the growth in aviation for the last 5 years has shown a record figures, and it's not the figures that we have been telling, but these are the figures which are announced by ACI, by ICAO, World Bank, and all other analysis which are done by the experts. And we are number one in terms of growth for the traffic, and we have received 50 million tourists last year. I think this will even grow more. And when the tourists are coming to Uzbekistan, that means, first of all, for the double landlocked country, we need to create all those conditions and connectivity. And that connectivity, first of all, comes from the aviation. Today, our aircraft fleet is exceeding 100 aircraft. We have never exceeded 40 for the last, I think, if you just take a look at a couple of years back, it was always around 40 to 50. So the digits doubled literally, and our strategy for 2030 is 180 aircraft. But I truly believe that that figure will be reached even within 2 years. And that tells that we are creating capacity, and that capacity is literally taken away by that demand which is coming for Uzbekistan. And not only for the passenger traffic, but the freight traffic as well. We have 4 different airlines already operating on the China-Europe market, and the e-commerce has really been a driver for that growth. And if I'm not mistaken by the statistics, in 2025, we've literally carried about 1.5% of the Asia-Europe market. So we're coming up as one of the drivers and key players on the traffic capacity. And by 2026, by the end of 2026, that figure should come at around 4%. So even in one year, I think the digits are expected to triple. That, of course, comes by the very hard work of the airline and the policies which are created by the Ministry of Transport, as well as Civil Aviation Authority, and the private sector, which is playing a key role. That being said, today, railway sector plays essential role, and I always say that if the world cargo is carried by sea liners, which is 95 to 96%, we don't have a sea, we don't have fleet, but rail is it has a dual purpose, and the rail is carrying about 90% of our traffic internally and externally. And the tracks which are being built not only inside Uzbekistan but also outside, which is China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan rail line, which has started in 2024. So our government has also put its own money into the construction, and as you know, the expected completion of this very expected railway line is 2030, but we're already putting extra efforts to make that happen by 2028 to 2029. And thanks for our partners in Kyrgyzstan as well as in China, they have brought all the essential tools and new technologies, because it's mountains area, the terrain is absolutely new for us, and despite that, I think in 3 years we should be able to complete, and that gives opportunity to for not only for Uzbekistan but for the Central Asia to take additional traffic, and the traffic is already growing. We expect about 15 million tons to received by the new line in 2032, and that figure should grow to 20 million by 2040. But all these predictions are preliminary, because whoever have done all their predictions for Uzbekistan, they were always wrong in a good term because they were pessimistic, and the figures have always tripled or doubled or tripled every time we have seen as a bifactual figures. And the other initiative is, of course, the Trans-Afghan. We are speaking not only to Afghan government, but also we're talking to Pakistan. Pakistan has already, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, we have signed the MOU last year to finish the feasibility study, and the governments have literally allocated funds from the for that specific project. And our team is already going for the expedition to make a detailed feasibility study in terms of technical site, and we expect to finish the feasibility study by end of this year. So that is phenomenal and historical moment for not only Uzbekistan, but for the whole Central Asia and for Europe, because that gives the shortest access to the seaports, which is Karachi, Gwadar in Karachi, I mean Pakistan. And yesterday we had an expert from India who was asking how we're connecting India into Central Asia. I think the integration process, which is already happening, it literally drives everybody to cooperate in open borders. If we look at Uzbekistan's latest history, like 8 years ago, we had all closed borders with our neighbors, as you know, with Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. We had even visa system, which was already, stopping all the traffic. And if India wants to look at existing lines, they have lines already connecting to Lahore, and the traffic was already there, and they should be able to use that new infrastructure, which will be created by the governments which have initiated. So 649 kilometers along the Trans-Afghan corridor. It's also terrain is absolutely different, and the kilometers of the tunnel, which we estimate today, is more than 100. So if you look at the cost of that infrastructure, we expect about 4 million on a normal line and above $10 million per kilometer on the mountains terrain. That is an initial estimate, but today the figure is about $7 billion, and interest is growing because we're talking to UAE, we're talking to Qatar, we're already working with our Kazakh partners, and the interest is actually growing year by year, because this is proven by figures by now, and as the pre-feasibility has done by Ernst & Young in 2023, and it's proven that this line will give about 20 million tons per year by 2040 as well. So those two corridors will literally drive Uzbekistan transit capacity as well as trade capability with South Asia and with CIS and Central Asia overall. Because today trade volumes are very high. If you look at the markets, I think it's about $750 billion of opportunity in South Asia, and we're literally taking about 1.5% of that opportunity. And always the transport drives the trade, and we believe the cost-driven trade will really help CIS in Central Asia to boost and take full-scale opportunity to increase our trade volumes and investment opportunities in Uzbekistan. So you also touched digitalization on the railway line. I think it's a good figure, but what I wanted to say that today about 52% of our rail is already electrified, and electrification is key for Uzbekistan because it's a green transport, and we have new trains which are coming, which are already working on the Tashkent, Samarkand, Bukhara and Karshi line, and we had new trains coming from Khandar Rotem in May, 2 trains already on the Khiva line as well, and that's also proves that already 1,000 kilometers of high-speed line is electrified and it's already running on the track. So that process will continue, and by 2030 we expect 70% electrification of our rail line. These are remarkable achievements, and I think it's a great effort by the government of Uzbekistan. And not many can say that they have electrified railway lines, even they are maybe very well-developed countries. And today, for Uzbekistan, that's a great achievement. And that achievement dynamic will continue. And there will be many surprising, in a good way, projects that will attract new investments, new partners, and opportunities for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Josubek. It's very, very interesting information about the figures, about the ongoing processes, especially in terms of developing not only middle corridor but also trans-Afghan corridor, and that those initiatives certainly will open Chinese and Indian markets and Middle East markets for Uzbekistan, and Uzbekistan for those markets as well. So I believe it's quite optimistic and quite ambitious plans, and for that we certainly need development of the infrastructure. It's not only the roads, railroads, but also logistics hubs and warehouses, etc. And I would like to ask my next speaker, Mr. Alexei Skatin from the Eurasian Development Bank, who has quite extensive experience working not only in the bank sector, but also, as far as I know, Russia Post and at Baltica, and which is quite, I don't know whether it's more interesting to work at Baltica or for the bank, but nevertheless, I want to ask Alexei about Eurasian Transport Network, the initiative of the Eurasian Development Bank and Unified Commodity Distribution Network. This is quite interesting, and how the bank is planning to be present in Uzbekistan, and what initiative you want to support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting Eurasian Bank to this panel session. My name is Alexei. So Eurasian Development Bank officially opened the office in Tashkent 1 month ago. It's a seven country in our bank. We have a 7 country now as a shareholders of the bank. Can I ask to open my presentation, please, if you don't mind? By the way, the main topic of our today's session, I think Uzbekistan team has a good chance to go through the group stage, because some teams doesn't fit well, I would say, including the stars. Okay, so my presentation is here. Eurasian Development Bank is a leader in Central Asia in terms of the non-sovereign investments. So we are leader here. So we lend money against its cash flow without any sovereign financing. Yeah. So it's some kind of project finance. So we are leader here. And as I said, we opened an office in Uzbekistan 1 month ago. You can see the Eurasian transport network on this slide. Yeah. You can find Tashkent and Samarkand somewhere in the middle. Yeah. Here. And you can see that our bank work in the region where the 5 regions landlocked in terms of the sea, yeah, and ocean. Uzbekistan locked twice. Uzbekistan don't have access to the sea, and their neighbors also. What does it mean? That means that 40% of penalty in terms of the logistics growth and economy growth. Because you know what kind of transport is the cheapest one. Yeah. That is why it's interesting topic to develop the logistics and transportation corridor here. But you see that the point of Tashkent here is a crossroad, yeah, between east-west and south-north, exactly. And this project, what my colleagues said, developing that to achieve for Uzbekistan the leadership with this crossroad. And we are ready to support it. Our bank created a special tool. It's a free to use, by the way. You can access it at our website. We collected 400 projects in logistics for Central Asia. It's a transportation, it's logistics hubs, and so on. Why we did it? We did it for two reasons. The first of all, we are going to invest where we would like to create the consortium and syndicates as well, and also to monitor how the logistics is developing. Please access today, and you can use it just to understand the database of this project, by the way. Let's focus on the Central Asia here. Yeah, you see the top 10 projects in transportation and logistics. You see that 6 of them it's connected to Uzbekistan. Yeah, you see? So you can see, I don't want to read this project, but you know this very well. But anyway, you see that the real place in logistics landscape for Uzbekistan. Yeah, it's also very important to develop the Central Asia. 31 projects in our database for Uzbekistan. Yeah, it's for the more $17 billion. You see that most of them it's for the roads. Why? Because you remember the first sentence in terms of the landlocked. Yeah, so that is why roads it's very important to develop as a first priority, and the second priority, by the way, railways. Yeah. Railways, it's a combination between time delivery time, and also the speed. That is why it's railways. It's also important. Airports, the third part, and you see that the main project in railways it's China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan rail corridor. Why it's important, by the way? Do you know? So we can access from China to Europe by 1,000 kilometers faster and shorter, yeah, from China to Europe. That is why it's a very important project. And also high-speed rail, it's one of the most important for passenger. It's from 6 days to 2 days, yeah, time to access the point. Two corridors I would like to underline here. So the first of them I already mentioned, China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan corridor. So we expect 5 times increase in container traffic by 2030. That is why it's very important to be here. Yeah. And also Trans-Afghan Railway Corridor project. So it's why it's important. It's 1,000 kilometer reduction in the distance. Yeah, to the Pakistan as well. It's a nice project to invest. So EDB has to be here also as a part of this project, and we are ready to invest here. But logistics solution, so okay, we have a railways, we have a roads, but we have a containers. But what we are going to do with these containers? We have to handle it, yeah? So we have to make a storage, and also we have to build this storage, because after that, the containers, which when we open it, we can deliver to the customers or to the consumers the goods. You see that Uzbekistan has a very good potential in terms of the warehouse development. You see that now we have a little bit less than 1 million square meters in Uzbekistan, but we expect 7-9 times growth for this. Why? On this slide, you can see some kind of universal KPI for this kind of facilities. Yeah, it's how many square meters we have per capita. You see that the place of Uzbekistan, how to say, we have opportunity to invest into this segment together. Yeah. You can compare with the United States, United Kingdom, so it's many times gap, yeah, between them. That is why, okay, we have Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, China railways, but where we are going to store it? Maybe that is why Deeper World has a project in Uzbekistan just to develop the containers flows as well. The idea of ADB bank, yeah, our idea is to combine and to make a formula: roads, railways, and warehouses together, dry ports, transit points. We are going to combine it in terms of our investments just to achieve the best synergy for Uzbekistan and Central Asia as well. Yeah? And our idea is to invest simultaneously in these two assets with you, together with other international financial institutes, with investors. And please remember, our bank is a leader in non-sovereign financing. Yeah? So we are ready to do project finance together. Thank you very much.
Alexei, thank you very much. It's quite an impressive presentation, and the plans of the bank to invest in railway sector of Uzbekistan, and hopefully you just started, I understand that, but hopefully you will stay for a long time here, and you will be able to reach all your plans and initiatives here in Uzbekistan. And now I want to give a floor to my good friend Mansour Bustani from the World Bank. I know Mansour for many years, I believe it 9 years ago we started this unbundling of civil aviation sector, and also we worked on toll roads, etc. So Mansour, could you please provide some feedback on transformation of the railway? I know that World Bank was also involved in that process of unbundling Uzbekistan railways, as well as World Bank's initiatives from the public sources. I know that you aim to invest around 200 million in nearest future in development of railway sector. And please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dilshad. May I have our presentation, please? Good morning, everyone. I'm Mansour Bustani, representing the World Bank here, and thank you for having the World Bank here. What I want to share with you today is our support to Uzbekistan Railways. We call it UTI, Uzbekistan Temir Yolları. This is really our development. This is for our development partners and also the international banks and investors in the room. And our thesis is simple. We would like to convert a state monopoly and turn it into a commercial bankable enterprise. And we are moving towards the point where IFIs and private capital can come in along the state. Okay. Now let me give you a bit of context first. You heard already that Uzbekistan is a double landlocked country. So for us, rail is not a nice thing to have. It's essential. It's non-discretionary infrastructure. This is not non-discretionary spending. So here's where we are going to talk about today. First, I'll take you through the transformation, what we are rebuilding jointly with the government of Uzbekistan, and the proof that it's actually working. And then we'll get to the near-term investment opportunities, because that's where the largest external upside sits. Let me start with the scale here and the quality of the demand behind it. UTI got about 4,700 road kilometers. That network carries about 60 million tons of freight and around 50 million passengers per year. And think about what this cargo is actually is. It's stuff that anchors the economy of Uzbekistan. It is mining, manufacturing, inputs, and transit. All told, rail contributes approximately 8% of the country's GDP. And a lot of that freight is tied directly to export, which means the hard currency flows to the country. So if there is one thing to take away here, especially for the lenders, investors, it's this. It is essential, resilient, climate-aligned infrastructure, and it has a real structural demand sitting behind it. That's the foundation that everything else I'm going to show you is built on. Let me start with the scale here and the quality of demand behind it. UTI got about, just a moment, yeah. So this is the detail underneath the transformation. What we are looking at the structured governance-led program. 44 transformational activities across 7 reform programs. And we are proud to support the government of Uzbekistan to implement this ambitious program. And I want to stress, this isn't some ad hoc wish list. Every single initiative here on the list has been scored on a strategic importance and in its benefit, and then sequenced by priority. Let me just walk you through them quickly. So far, we have milestones achieved. World Bank has already supported the sector unbundling process with vertical separation of UTI to freight, passenger, infrastructure lines of businesses, but still consolidated at a holding company level. Upcoming steps include several programs, including strategic development that sets direction on market, capacity, and tariff and rolling stock. The next is a target operating model that rebuilds management, budgeting, commercial, and HR. Financial transformation covers IFRS, audit, and financial model and the credit rating. And then finally, investment, operational efficiency, IT, and of course ESG rounds the whole thing out. And the message I really want to convey to investors, change here is planned. It is governed and it's measurable. And that's actually what de-risks the delivery. Now this is for me a proof point on credit. Look at how financials have swung. From heavy loss in 23 to profit in 24 and then strong 25. To put numbers on it, it is roughly 188 million net loss in 23, then break even in 24, and positive 138 million in 2025. And here's how you get it. The infrastructure company sits inside UZNIF. That is a $2.4 billion fund managed by Franklin Templeton, with a dual listing in London and Tashkent. That's the capital market entry point. And it's what actually lets external investors participate in railways. So the bottom line is simple. This turnaround isn't a forecast or a promise. It's already in the numbers. And the road for capital is being opened right now. In our view, in view of the World Bank, these are the 6 structural moves that would take the railway all the way to be bankable. And the key thing here, they build on each other. One sets the next. These are exactly the kind of reforms the IFIs look for. So walking through them, first, separating out the infrastructure manager. Secondly, moving to cost-reflective tariffs. This is an important initiative which is supported by the World Bank and the EU-funded expertise funds, while still funding the socially vital services transparently through PSOs, public service obligations. Then put a multi-annual ring-fenced infrastructure contracts in place. Next, open up access to private operators. And finally, align the financing with service quality. And the point of all of it is predictable set of rules and clear interface between the players, which is precisely the framework lenders want to see before they commit. So let me now drill into the cornerstone of our framework, which is tariff reform. So this is a deep dive on tariff reforms, and I would call this a regulatory cornerstone of the whole investment case. Here is a headline, and I want to be really clear. This is not a price hike. What we are doing is moving away from situational, after-the-fact increases toward a transparent set of rules of the game. The way I would frame it is a shift from type A, which you can see on a slide, to type B. Type A is what we have today, ad hoc increases that just pile costs into trade and feed inflation. Whereas type B is a stable, rules-based tariff, and the formula is simple. Tariff equals A plus B plus C. So that's your core costs plus a return on investment. Then the specific cost for particular traffic, and finally the service incentives. For investors, this means, in practice, cost-reflective, predictable pricing. It ends the cross-subsidization from the government and underpins the revenue model that genuinely sustainable and financeable. So let's turn to the growth pipeline. I will not, of course, list all the projects available from UTI in their investment plan, but I will mention the direction the World Bank is looking at. World Bank is currently shifting its focus to metropolitan connectivity. Daily migration to and from Tashkent exceeds 1 million people a day. Tashkent is growing fast, and suburban rail is a quick, financeable way to keep the capital moving. Because of the one thing that we cannot let happen is for transport to be a bottleneck for growth. What is clever about this model is that it is designed to be self-funding through land value capture. So you pair the lines of development around the stations, and it will deliver seamless multimodal links. Tashkent to Chirchik. Chirchik is one of the closest satellite cities to Tashkent. This road pilot would be a strong first step here. So for the lenders and investors in the room, this is a near-term opportunity. It's backed by real ridership, and it comes with a built-in monetization and affordability story. So let me pull the whole thesis together. There's a de-risking trajectory that genuinely worth backing. And I would give you 3 reasons. First, a proven turnaround. The UTI financials and the credit profile have already turned the corner. Second, a predictable ring-fenced framework, tariff reform, and a multimodal infrastructure contract, all of which give lenders and investors clear rules to work with. And third, growth with real upside, and we see it in urban mobility. This is where IFIs and private capital can come alongside the state and at scale. I would like to close where the biggest opportunity. Looks like there is no slide, appears. Okay, so I would like to close with the biggest opportunity, which is regional connectivity. This is the largest external upside in the whole story, and it's natural that it fits MDB's co-financing and blended finance. You already heard from Mr. Sharif and Mr. Skatin about the 2 corridors that on the table of the government, UKC, Uzbekistan-Kyrgyz-China railway connection, and Trans-Afghan corridor. But alongside them, we've got a wider Trans-Caspian roads of the middle corridor, and together these turn the country from a transit from the transit dead end into a Central Asian crossroads. A reformed bankable railway plus corridors that genuinely remap regional trade. This is the opportunity in front of all of us. I'll wrap here. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mansour. It's quite interesting that the World Bank is also interested in urban connectivity projects. I think this is really what Uzbekistan needs nowadays, especially Tashkent, given the amount of growth and the speed of that growth of urban population in Uzbekistan and in the cities of Uzbekistan. That's good news for us, and hopefully with the help of World Bank we'll be able to implement all those projects. And we have talked about what the government is doing, what the banks are ready to invest to, what we need, the numbers, etc. And I would like to ask my next speaker, Inakenti Ivanov from Freshfields. And by the way, I want to congratulate him with signing the new Tashkent International Airport deal. Kinstellar and Freshfields worked together on the sponsor side on that deal, and yesterday there was a signing of that deal. And Inakenti, could you please provide your insights on what legal instruments or mechanisms you would suggest to apply in all those reforms that the government of Uzbekistan is taking, and given your extensive background in transport sector, especially in Europe, in Germany, what your observations? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dilshad. Could you put the presentation on screen, please? This button? Okay. No, it's not mine. It's still another one, please. I can give the word to Roman, of course. So, but thank you very thank you for the introduction, Dilshad, and also thank you for inviting us. I was reminded of an old saying, no matter where a discussion starts, sooner or later it ends with infrastructure. And indeed, this is the case today. And if we get our presentation, we can speak about the legal aspect of it. And what I would like to do, indeed, is to place infrastructure development into a broader context, a broader legal context. And the broader legal context in Uzbekistan is, of course, very much shaped by the ongoing railway reform, railway sector reform. And this reform, in our opinion, is opening a range of legal pathways for development, whether through market-based mechanisms or private investment structures, life cycle models, or public-private partnerships. Just tell me if, should I try? No, doesn't work. Certainly I could speak without presentation, but it would be a pity not to use it. Давайте. Вот это. Вот это. Yeah. Let us wait just 20 seconds, but we can continue then. Please just let me know. Подскажите, пожалуйста, если презентации не будет, я просто буду продолжать, чтобы не утомлять нашу аудиторию. Если презентация будет, я с удовольствием воспользуюсь ей. Okay, yeah. I would say just one word on the reform itself. We have a wonderful presentation from the World Bank, from you, Mansour. And there is no point in repeating what is important for us or in our opinion in terms of the reform. But I would like to look at that from the legal perspective. And there are at least 3 elements which stand out in terms of the legal assessment of the reform. I would name greater private sector participation, stronger competition, and also, and this is very important for me as a lawyer, market-based mechanisms. And we are indeed already seeing tangible changes. And this is not only the reorganization of Uzbekistan Railway into a holding with improved governance, but for us, thank you. Now, for us, it is also important that there is a broader legal framework enabling private investment and also independent operators. And this is one of the key elements you can see on screen. This is just an opinion of a lawyer, and a good example of this development is a dedicated freight operator. And this illustrates indeed how reform fosters commercially driven businesses and also more efficient use of assets. And I basically agree with each and every point of your 6 aspects, Mansour, because all of them are very important. And in line with this, and because, as Dilshad announced, I'm now coming from Germany, I'm based in Germany, I could hardly resist to bring a related example. which you can see on the screen. The railway sector there in Germany also underwent a major transformation some time ago, a couple of decades ago. And what is particularly interesting about this example and this reform is that it went beyond restructuring in itself. It also established a stable and predictable financing framework. And one of the more innovative elements at that time was the use of long-term contractual arrangement between the government and the infrastructure company, which was separated at that time. And this is what I have highlighted here in, it was red originally, okay, it's a different color now, but still same meaning, and funding under this framework. Funding is tied to measurable objectives and performance commitments rather than relying solely on usual annual budget cycles. I mention this because our firm advised the German government on these arrangements, and the model combines different financing tools: investment grants, equity, public loans, also dedicated modernization programs within a single long-term framework. And what is the lesson there, in my opinion, is that a successful railway development requires not only the institutional reform, but also a credible, predictable financing architecture. And this is completely in line with what we have heard from the World Bank today, and an important next step, maybe. I will not, don't be scared by the next slide. Yeah. Is it working at all? Yeah, now that was about Germany, and now the next slide. And the next slide is about financing instruments, but I will not go through the financing instruments themselves. They are absolutely obvious, and this is not my task. But what matters is how this instrument, obvious and well known on other markets and on other segments of the market, how they made to work in practice for railways in Uzbekistan. And from a legal perspective, this ultimately comes down to getting the overall structure right, also from the legal standpoint, structure right across different financing approaches. In one of the recent examples we have advised on, which is the quite famous Hafid rail financing, by the way, the first railway connecting Oman and UAE. The task was to bring together conventional and Islamic finance in a single structure. And across all of this, whether bank financing, capital markets, or equity, whatever you see on the screen, the same consideration applies. And this becomes particularly visible in developing markets. That was clearly reflected in earlier market practice in the post-Soviet region, especially in Russia, by the way, some 20 years ago, with syndicated lending to Russian railways, with its Eurobond program and also green bonds programs. We worked on private placements in freight sector, and a famous transaction, quite precedent at that time, Transcontainer IPO, which was very successful. And having worked on that type of transactions and all of these precedents, I can say that the right legal framework in place, which is, I think, already there in Uzbekistan to the great extent, already there, and also properly implemented through structured transactions, opens a much broader range of financing channels, and financing channels become not just available, but actually usable in practice then. And this brings me to the next slide, and also the next, the next topic, because another important source of capital is the monetization of non-core assets, and where appropriate, privatization of selected railway businesses. And in practice, this is not just about selling assets, and this is what I think is important. It's about bringing them to market in a way that remains operationally viable and also investable. And the starting point is the clarity, defined asset perimeter, and a transparent divestment strategy. And this is where the reform process in Uzbekistan is already heading. But the real value is created in how individual transactions are put together. And in more advanced examples, these are well beyond a simple sale. They include shareholders' arrangements, also retention of minority stakes, investor lockups in many cases, and long-term operational and maintenance obligations with measurable performance standards. And for certain assets, the focus may instead be on supply commitments or investment programs to expand capacity. So this is not just sale. And drawing on our experience in earlier railway privatization programs also in the region, a key feature was that bidders were selected not only on price, but on the strength of their long-term commitments. And probably the last point before I move forward and speak about public-private partnerships, financing alone does not modernize railways, as we all know. What also matters is how investment is translated into reliable assets and services. Sorry, this is the next one. Across projects in different markets, procurement models, and this is what the next slide about, procurement models can have a significant impact on long-term operational performance. This was particularly evident in rolling stock programs implemented with manufacturers like Siemens or Alstom, where we were involved in a number of transactions. And what you can see on the right side, if you see the same what I see in my computer here, on the right side, there is a life cycle model. And life cycle model can be seen in some of our recent projects, where rolling stock is procured under contracts that cover delivery, maintenance, availability, and asset performance. Many of you definitely are aware of this structure. Under a traditional supply contract, the manufacturer delivers the train and provides warranty support, but under these models, responsibility continues over time, and is linked to operational readiness and asset performance for operators. This improves reliability and predictability of costs, but for manufacturers, of course, it creates an opportunity to optimize performance over the full life cycle and also build long-term partnerships, which is also an advantage. I think this marks a shift from delivery-based contracts to outcome-oriented arrangements. And this is also an important part of the transformation of the rail sector for Uzbekistan as well. And now we are coming to structuring private investment, and this is the final chapter in my presentation. And to probably answer your question or the background of or what you was asking about, Dilshad, there is no single model for attracting private investment into railway infrastructure. At one end of the spectrum are network-wide concession arrangements. We have experience with such structures, like in a concession project in Armenia, for example. But I would say this tend to be relatively rare and closely linked to national policy choices. This is not typical and not necessarily efficient. At the other end are project-specific approaches, such as joint ventures for particular asset or business segment, and we have encountered a number of this type of arrangements in a number of jurisdictions, including Kazakhstan, for example, for logistic terminals and so on. But for large-scale investment projects, for those projects we have heard about today, international practice is increasingly moving towards PPP framework. And this is what I would like to show you, and probably to discuss why PPP at all, why public-private partnerships. You all know, we all know, railway infrastructure typically involves high capital cost, long development timelines, significant construction operational risks. PPP structures allow these risks to be allocated to the party or parties best placed to manage them. And that's the advantage. They also broaden the pool of financing, combining public funding with commercial lenders, development finance institutions, and also private investors. However, PPP is not only about financing, it's about technical expertise, project discipline, also long-term operational incentives. And for this reason, PPP became a standard approach for major railway projects in so many jurisdictions, particularly where governments seek to accelerate development while retaining strategic oversight of the sector. And I think this is the case in Uzbekistan. Sorry,
Sorry, Nakenti.
I will find. I will probably move on with this last slide.
Yeah, in Nakenti, sorry, if
Yeah.
you could kind of
Yeah,
wrap
sure.
up in a
Absolutely.
couple of minutes.
Yeah.
because- Thank you.
Yeah, I have only probably 1 minute or probably a couple of minutes because I would like to show you the public-private partnership as a type of project. And the central issue here is the role of the state. And this is what is important for Uzbekistan. In some models, the state acts directly as contracting authority, like in France or in China. And I think that in Uzbekistan, after the reform and the reformed railway company, and after the segmentation of the infrastructure company, the state railway company would be well positioned to play a central role in future PPP development. But obviously, risk allocation is a defining element, and construction, completion, operational, demand, land acquisition, political risks, they must be allocated properly. These risks are typically addressed in the PPP agreement, and PPP agreement becomes indeed a core document in a project of this type. And this little diagram is basically the end slide in my presentation, and you see this diagram illustrates a typical, or let me put it that way, a possible railway PPP structure. At its central is a project company, which acts as a delivery vehicle and sits between the public sector, investors, lenders, contractors. And around are the key contracts: PPP agreement, construction, operation, maintenance agreement, financing documents, shareholder arrangements, and direct agreements with lenders. And direct agreements, what is important for lenders indeed. And funding typically combines sponsor equity and debt from commercial lenders, export credit agencies, multilateral institutions. In practice, the complexity lies less in the structure itself. This is what I can tell you as a lawyer, but more in coordination across multiple stakeholders, public authorities. Railway PPP projects frequently face governance challenges because multiple ministries, regulators, local authorities, state-owned entities are involved. And clear allocation of those responsibilities is important. And last but not least, cross-border projects, and we have those in Uzbekistan, in Uzbekistan and neighbor countries, add another layer of complexity and require intergovernmental arrangements to coordinate regulatory frameworks, technical standards, border procedures, and so on. So if I may leave you with just one thought, Uzbekistan is no longer faced the question of whether railway development can be supported by legal framework. The framework exists, basically. The tools exist, and international experience is available. So the next task is just to deliver projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Inokenti. As lawyers, love to speak a lot, especially on the topics they love to speak about. So I'm sorry for interrupting, but we have a tight schedule, and I would like Roman Sorkin from Škoda Group to tell about Škoda Group's initiatives in Uzbekistan, their plans. We know that Škoda has signed an agreement with Uzbekistan Railways for the delivery of 10 high-speed trains, and this is quite significant milestone for Škoda in Uzbekistan. And I know that Škoda has quite ambitious plan for Uzbekistan. And Roman, please, could you share your thoughts about that?
Yes, Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I will try to speak in an easy way and possibly entertaining way to win back your attention after this long panel discussion. I don't know if the presentation runs. If it is, I will just use it as a background. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, generally, I know everyone knows Škoda through the cars, but actually there are more than one Škoda in Czech Republic, and us, Railway Škoda, being actually the oldest one. We are more than 160 years back, dating back to our history. And I can say that we are a very natural beast in this transportation realm in Uzbekistan, because during more than 4 decades, we have been the only supplier of passenger mainline locomotives to the whole Soviet Union, and we have delivered more than 70,000 units through those 4 decades, still running and operating there, still a backbone, so we know where we are playing actually. And after the 19th, or during the 19th, we managed not only to survive, because a lot of companies from the ex-Soviet bloc with similar routes unfortunately discontinued, but we sort of managed to position ourselves between the top tier players within the European producers, and we won our place and developed really a beautiful know-how, competing with the best of the European railway producers. And then we decided it's time to bring back knowledge to the so-called 1520 wide gauge region, where we started with the project of Latvian electric multiple plane trains in Riga. We continued in Tallinn, and I can even proudly say that we will be bringing to Riga firstly the battery trains, which will be able to operate catenary free, still electrical and clean. And now it's time for us to come to Uzbekistan. Why Uzbekistan? I mean, we are growing. I mean, we not only survived, we will not only managed to survive, we are growing fast. But the tempo Uzbekistan is growing is sort of tremendous. We can hardly find a place with this tempo. And I was talking yesterday with our board members, saying, okay, I think not many people or companies can be so lucky to be really at the breaking point of the growth in some place. And what we decided, that simple words, we will make Uzbekistan our next home, our next home base, and just to use to include this growth and these dynamics of Uzbekistan into the very genome of Škoda transportation, because when we are coming to the region, we are nurturing the local people, making them parts of our teams, and with the young and growing and educated population of Uzbekistan, we will be not only localizing operations, I mean assembly or production or supply chain operations locally, but we are also opening in cooperation with Tashkent Transport University, the so-called Škoda Academy. And I think we will be a home-based company in Uzbekistan very soon. Of course, we are bringing a little bit different point of view compared to my fellow speakers. When we are a producer, and we are a producer of public transportation oriented. I'll just maybe try to show products. I mean, we are fully electrical, and we produce full range of public mobility products. These are, in simple words, passenger trains, tramways, and metros. Generally, the full portfolio, the emerging population of Uzbekistan requires. But it's not about, I don't want to speak like product-wise or like sort of solution-oriented. Thank you very much for mentioning our kick-off contract, which is very important. But what we are bringing is the element of universal accessibility, and I'm very happy that just Rebecca K is also attending this panel discussion. What I want to say, I mean, we can perceive it just as ad hoc procurements of 10 trains, 20 trains, 15 trains, so on. But what we would really like to address is the challenges most of fastly growing urbanizations facing, and not to hit the mobility wall. We really need to focus on universal accessibility and really understand that what we are bringing is not a product itself, but sort of an ecosystem of barrier-free transportation environment. I mean, not to hit the mobility wall, which typically all big cities are doing, and to avoid it, we need to address it now, like before the problem emerges. And on the vehicle part, what we are bringing and what we have not seen so far in Uzbekistan are so-called low-floor vehicles. I mean, barrier-free vehicles. At the same time, to make, I mean, to use this potential, we need also to address challenges on the side of the infrastructure and mobility planning. And for that, I'm really encouraging IFIs present and playing on the market, like World Bank, EBRD, everyone, really to join our initiative and find facilities for feasibility studies or other measures. And really, let's, in simple words, let's sit on the table, assess it, address it, and tell to ourselves what we have to do now to really fully utilize the potential of investments we are making now into the transportation sphere of Uzbekistan, to give this beautiful population really a barrier-free, attractive public transportation which people will be spontaneously and happy to use. I mean, that's it. I mean, the problem is known. It's time to properly address it now. The second pillar is we are really on the side of the technology integrator, and I can see the two other elements of success story for Uzbekistan, where it is technical predictability and bankability of such significant projects, because these projects are not easy. I mean, we need the technical predictability, and we are investing a lot into bringing technologies from Europe, from Asia, from other parts of the world, and integrate them into Uzbekistan. I can see fast progress in terms of aviation or infrastructure or financial architecture of projects coming to Uzbekistan. They are very sophisticated, but I'm afraid we might be forgetting about one important aspect, and these are technological standards, because without the clear and leveled standardization aspect, we might be unnecessarily raising or increasing integration costs and timelines of technologies we are bringing to Uzbekistan. I mean, we know the legacy, however, a lot of new technologies are coming here. And ourselves, we are the most vocal advocates in European Commission. We managed to bring together actually the DG INTPA, DG MOVE, European Association of Railway Producers, UNIFE, European Railway Agency, and we are pushing together, we are pushing forward the idea of so-called TSI 1520, which are the norms for interoperability and the technical standards. And what we managed to do, Jasurbek Ake, and this is the invitation for Uzbeks, we convinced them to invite local experts from Central Asia to join the topical working group of 1520 we are actually managing within the UNIFE. So please nominate your experts. And this job should be paid and financially covered by European Commission. We will just be bringing not only our trains but all railway technologies like quicker and cheaper here, and also ensuring a predictive lifetime costs, which is important. So that's for that. And another, like the third pillar of panels, is actually a bankability. We found ourselves in, I think, the most challenging situation here, where we found out that I'm not calling it actually a competition distortion, hence we are using these terms when we are in fights in Brussels. However, we saw Asian banks and Asian development banks going far beyond the standard or typical OECD standards of export financing here. I mean, we are not arguing, we understand that the rate of growth Uzbekistan is doing need these resources, and we sort of approached European Commission, and we were understood that Uzbekistan just needs the priority, and in this project it's not about, it's not breakthrough technical wise, it's a sort of European breakthrough financial wise, because we managed to convince European Commission for special means of support. And actually through the involvement of European Investment Bank, we managed to cover the half of risk costs in the structure of export credit for this project, making it 15% effectively cheaper and more affordable. I think it's really the first case where through a slight modification of OECD arrangement, we managed to nearly match the aggressive parameters of Asian export credits, proving that if we play together, we can be same competitive as our Asian partners, I can say. So with that, I just want to thank Uzbekistan for welcoming us to the country, and with this initial project of 10 trains, which will show another standard of barrier-free transportation to Uzbek. We are just starting here. We will be producing this platform, which is unique for Central Asia, for neighboring markets, Central Asia and South Caucasus. We will be bringing here the technology of metro trains, which we are very experienced in. I can say proudly that we are second most experienced and European most experienced producer of metro trains for so-called Soviet tunnel, because same we have in Prague, Warsaw and Sofia. I believe we will see Uzbekistan in a position of important railway exporter in the region soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roman. And just one minor correction, just so we rightly mentioned, it was not high speed, it's middle speed trains, but nevertheless 160 kilometers per hour is quite high speed for Uzbekistan. Hopefully we will enjoy using Škoda trains. Before wrapping up and coming to the questions, I would like to thank all the speakers for their valuable contribution today. It was, I believe, very interesting and useful information for all the attendances of this panel discussion. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please feel free, please. Okay, ladies first then. The mic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the excellent presentations. I'm Céleste Laporte from the OECD, and I have actually two quick questions to EDB and Traseka. First question to you, Mr. Skatin. You were mentioning the very strong demand for warehouse space, and at the same time very limited availability of storage capacity in Uzbekistan. And I think you're one of the few development banks currently investing in warehousing development. Do you see any barriers to private sector investment in warehousing in Uzbekistan, and what are there? What needs to be done? And my second question to Mr. Choriev is about vessel acquisitions. Do you think that would make sense for Uzbekistan to acquire its own vessels for Caspian Sea crossing? And thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think Uzbekistan already considering vessel acquisition. It's the matter of the type of the vessel that we have to look, because of the Caspian Sea, which is really requires deep analysis because of the capacity and the tonnage that can carry. And year by year it's changing, and the traditional vessels which are manufactured around the Caspian Sea, it's different than what the environment is changing. And we are speaking already to several manufacturers, including the Asian manufacturers. So I think the time will prove by the feasibility study, but two private companies already really looking deep into that opportunity, and as well the funding which is coming from the Uzbek Azeri fund, which is already established. And if the feasibility proves that the vessels, I mean, most probably it will be much smaller one, but in quantity will be larger, because it really requires frequency which we are lacking, and for the middle corridor at the moment, and that the transit time, which is sometimes is really increased because of the waiting time on the seaports. So from that perspective, if it really helps to improve the frequency, I think that's a really feasible option, and at a smaller capacities. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup à vos questions. I don't see any barriers to invest. There is some kind of, I would say, cultural aspect. can you imagine? Yeah, so the warehouse, it can be such kind of small warehouse, yeah, without any artificial intelligence and some nice materials, for example, and so on. Yeah, it's a class C. Yeah. Why do you need class A? Yeah, so it has to be some kind of cultural shift that Uzbekistan has to use much more qualitative warehouse for the operations. Yeah, for the pharmacy you have to store very well. By the way, good movement is already done. So Uzum, yeah, so one of the leader in e-commerce, so they already started building the best warehouse here. It's one topic, and second topic, it's some kind of accurate, very accurate approach from the different DFI here. Not for EDB, yeah. So we are ready to invest, and we are ready. So we have in pipeline for already 500 million USD now in terms of the warehousing. No barrier in terms of the government. It's you can invest tomorrow in these facilities. Cultural and trying to or passing the risks from DeFi mind of where and how to invest into this topic. Please come to Eurasian Bank, and we are ready to invest as a consortium into this warehousing. By the way, we can share the risk. We have a special fund to invest into the warehouse, by the way. We set up these particular funds in AFC in Astana, Almaty, just to be part of the equity with the partners in Tashkent as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question, I believe that since we have a tight schedule, yes, any other questions, I believe you can ask by approaching the speakers. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Otabek Suleimanov, Kinstellar law firm. One commentary regarding the transformation of railway. As a lawyer, I can say that it would be really good if we had a special law for that. Закон о трансформации, given the scale of the corporation, that will increasing be the bankability. That's one thing. The second is the question about Iran. Given all the circumstances around the geopolitics and Iranian war, what are the challenges or maybe more opportunities that you think will happen in Uzbekistan logistics? Thank you.
So it's a particular question to somebody or everyone who wants to, any volunteers for Jusubeka? Maybe Mansour? I don't know.
I was invited to start about the legislation, but I agree with you completely. So a special law is needed and would help very much. I would refrain from commenting on your Iran question. This is rather for you, Mansour, perhaps. Yeah, agree on the law.
Thank you, Otabek, for this question. So, Iran was part of our pre-feasibility study when we studied, when we did the first version of the pre-feasibility study for Trans-Afghan corridor. And currently, Trans-Afghan corridor goes through Afghanistan to Pakistani ports, Gwadar and Karachi. But the original road was going through the ports of Iran. This was the last consideration of the World Bank of Iranian ports. So far, we have not yet came up with any other alternative project or feasibility for that road.
Law on the transformation, it's coming. As soon as we finish all the preparatory work and initial approval by the Cabinet of Ministers as well as from the Oli Majlis. I think we will go into the law. On Iran, you know, it's a big country. It really impacted our aviation sector, and because literally all of our flights going into the Middle East flies over Iran, and today in terms of cost it added around $10,000 to $15,000 per one way for each flight. So if you're comparing round trip going into say UAE, Qatar, or you know, Saudi Arabia, so that increased the transit time by about 1.5 hours to 1 hour to 40 minutes. And in terms of cost, of course, it also increased around 15%. We were, I think, lucky to put some reserves on fuel because of the pricing we have already negotiated with some of the suppliers. So the reserve volumes that we already had for the aviation fuel, it kind of sustained the cost of the tickets for the passengers, and I really hope that the conflict will be over and the oil prices will come down, because it's affecting not only for the transport but for the whole economy of dependence. So, but for Uzbekistan, I think we were able to come out of that difficult time, unlike many countries who are heavily dependent from 60 to 90% on the Iranian oil. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your time and your insights in the sector, and thank you all participants of this panel session. I can see that the next panel session is ready to start, so let's wrap up, and thank you again.
And thank you, Dilshad, for organizing and moderating.